Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast. I'm your host, Maria Gonçalves, and today we have a very special guest all the way from the UK, Jackie Dennison. So, welcome, Jackie. And we
Thank you.
also have we also have Dana Louise from Australia, who is a super fan of Jackie. So, welcome, Dana.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks for sharing the platform with me.
You're welcome. And Dana's also a spiritual medium and a dear friend. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Jackie. So Jackie Dennison is an international clairvoyant medium, psychic artist, tutor, past life regressionist, therapist, owner of Feathers Academy, and a TV medium who is based in the UK. Correct, Jackie? You're in the UK, right?
I certainly am. At this moment in time, yes.
Yes, because Jackie travels all over the world. Jackie provides training in spiritual and psychic development, both in person and via Zoom. So if you guys are interested, please reach out to her. She also offers readings. I've had the privilege of having a reading with Jackie 4 years ago on Zoom. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to get a second reading again. So excited. Uh, Also, her work has been featured in various magazines and newspapers, including My Psychic Art in Maximillen de Lafayette's. Did I say that right?
Yeah, de Lafayette. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Spirit paintings and art from the afterlife. So I encourage you to go over to her website, jackiedennison.com. I will have the links on the YouTube video and on the podcast for you guys to check out or to reach out to Jackie. And you can see her spirit art. There's a lot of beautiful artwork and magazine articles that she's been in. So I encourage you to go check it out. For some of you that are watching, or maybe all of you, you may recognize her from her popular and successful Canadian TV show, Rescue Mediums, which ran for 7 seasons. I absolutely loved it. And you guys can also catch this on YouTube. She is also part of In Inspectra Paranormal with Tom Borrow, which is a podcast. And in this podcast, it shines light deep in the dark corners of the world of the unexplained and investigates some very strange ghostly phenomena. Each episode features the firsthand spoken testimonials from real life witnesses who have experienced some baffling and terrifying encounters. And you can also listen to this on YouTube. And also, because that's not enough, Jackie is also creating a TV show in Japan, which started October 2022. She was invited to Japan to film a documentary, which aired on Fuji TV. The show is called The Psychic versus the Professional. Its aim was to showcase how a psychic would tackle a situation in comparison with someone who is professional within their own rights. Um, and she is also a part of veryparanormal.com, which you can find her show, The Rescue Mediums, there. You're a busy, busy medium. I love it.
I am busy. I love being busy.
I
I'm
do.
going back to Japan actually. I had a meeting with some of my Japanese friends just this morning. So I'm going back in October, so next month, going back to film a third show for them. So I've done the first show that you've mentioned. And then the second one was a history show. It's like a history with a mystery show. So, and the one I'm going to be doing next time is a history with a mystery. So, yeah. So I love anything that you have to find out what the spirits are saying to you. You have to find out what the mystery is, and then you have the professional researcher who will then go away and do all the research to sort of back everything up. Because I'm a stickler for having proof of things, after the event. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
That sound I just love it. And you know what I liked about watching you on Rescue Mediums is you took the fear out of being scared of the spirit world. Like you're very
Yeah.
calm. And like you said, like you have the proof, you have the evidence. So now I am super curious. Were you always like as a young kid, were you always interested in the paranormal?
Um, Good question. I think that I was aware of spirit from about the age of 8, when I saw, well, I thought I saw a dog. I bent down to stroke the dog, and my friend who was with me said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm stroking the dog," and she couldn't see the dog. And then I saw a gentleman, probably when I was about 8, I was about 9, maybe this time. I was waiting for my auntie to come home from work. She lived with us at the time. And this man came past and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for our Jean." And so he said, "Oh, just tell her, that I said hello." He gave me his name and off he trundled up the road. And when she arrived, I told her what he said. She said, "You couldn't have seen him. He died 2 years ago." And so, and so that, but I don't normally see like that. That's the thing. So I didn't really get interested until I was in my teens when I became curious and wanted to know, I think teenagers are though, aren't they? It's a typical thing like, well, what's a bit spooky, a bit scary. And then, of course, you go to work, you get married, you have kids, you do all the normal things. And so it wasn't until sort of later on in life when I really became interested and wanted to learn how to do things. So, yeah, so I didn't really have the typical upbringing when I knew that spirit were around as a child. It came and went with me.
Yeah.
So, and thankfully it stayed.
So how
And
was it?
Jackie,
Oh, sorry. I'm just curious. Like when you're growing up like that, are your parents mediums?
no,
No.
no. But I found out years later that both my grandmothers were uh, interested. One of my grandmothers, who she went into the service. So you're talking about, she was born in 1900. So she went into service probably about 12, 13 years of age. And so she was a maid and a cook, worked in a big house, right until when she got married. And what I didn't know about her, I would never have suspected about her, was that she was interested in this kind of thing. And she actually was actively looking for spirit energy. And I was so surprised when I found that out. She went to a seance, and it's like, what? My nana went to a seance. And my other nan, my mum's mum, um, looking back, I realized that she knew, because she always knew when I was going to visit. So I worked at a place just across the road from where she lived. And in my lunch break, and it was random. I never went on a particular day. She didn't have a telephone, so I couldn't have called her to say, I'm going to come and see her. We didn't have cell phones in those days anyway, but I couldn't have gone to see her. She wouldn't have known. But she always knew when I was there. And she said, "Oh, I knew you were coming. I'd done this today." So she would do like my favorite lunch, and she had no idea I was going to call there because it was a random thing for me to do. But she knew. And some of my mum's sisters were also very in tune with spirit energy, but it scared them. They were scared of it. So I think that's why the scary aspect, you mentioned that, we're going to haunted places, and I'm so quite calm about it because I didn't want to be scared by something that is natural. It's naturally all around us.
Yeah.
And if you take this if we take the time to understand something, we take the fear out of it. And so I think that's where I was coming from with that. Wanted to be able to understand what's making this happen. Why is this happening? I call it spirit counseling. You talk to the spirit and go, "Okay, so what's your problem? What's going on with you?" Rather than shouting and challenging, because if you imagine you go into a place and the place is filled with human people, not spirit people, they're human people that are there. And you go, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" and you take an aggressive form to them, they're going to react in an aggressive way back to you. You know, if you say, "Oh, get out of here, you're not welcome here, get out," they'll probably go, "Well, excuse me, but what right do you have to be here?" So you speak to spirit in exactly the same way as you would if someone was physically there, you know, because they've once been human, so they've got all the human ways of communicating. We just don't have a voice box, but we do have the thoughts. So yeah, that's why I like to take the fear out of things. Like, is there a reasonable explanation for this? Why are you doing that? For goodness sake, have you anything better to do than sit there all day throwing things at people who walk into the room? You know, surely there's got to be something more than this. So I call it spirit counselling. That's the way I like to look at it.
I like that. Okay, Dina, go.
Well, I was going to ask Jackie because I didn't realize that both your grandmothers had that ability. But when you had your first experience, as you said, at the age of 8, what was the initial response in the family to that? Or how was that experience explained to you or supported, rather?
I didn't tell them.
Oh,
I didn't tell with the dog. I didn't tell them because it just literally it wasn't relevant to me. It didn't resonate with me. With the chap that I saw, his name was George. When I saw George and I mentioned it to my auntie, she said, "Well, you know, you couldn't have seen George because he died 2 years ago." And I was sort of, as children are, if you explain something to them, they're very matter of fact. And she said, "Oh, he couldn't have died." And I went, "Oh, really? Okay, gone, gone out of my head, you know." And I'm sure she must have said something to my parents about that. But if she did, it was not mentioned.
right. And you mentioned that you actually started to actually get more interest in your teenage years. Did that mean that you were going to a circle, or were you going into practice with other mediums or training mediums? How did that evolve for you, Jackie?
Oh no, I went down the Wiccan, shall we say, route, the Wiccan route. And I wanted to know, you know, when people talk about, oh, the devil, who is the devil? What is the devil? Can we conjure up the devil? Because I'd like to ask him who he is. You know, so that was the kind of teenage thing, curiosity about demons and, you know, that kind of thing. Because not because I wanted to use that or I wanted to, you know, make a pact with the devil or anything like that. I wanted to understand you know, is this a person who has once lived, and then who is this person, you know? And so I think that it was I was curious about things, and I was with other people who were also curious, not mediumistically, although at the time, you know, you don't realize it is being mediumistically, but more on a psychic level, I think, than anything else. It's only much later when I questioned what happens when we die, and I started going to the spiritualist church with my sister-in-law. And she had a great knowledge with spiritual matters, so I was lucky enough to be able to talk to her about it. And that's Christine, who was my first partner on Rescue Medium. She was married to my brother Kevin. So yeah, the two of us would go to the spiritualist church too, and my mum was interested then, and she would come with us as well. So
Oh, I love that. You know, there was an episode, I was watching it last night for Rescue, and it was about possession. And you had
mm.
filmed it in Canada. So it was a Brampton family. It was a young girl. Do you remember that episode?
Oh yes,
Can you
yeah.
share? Because I will say, watching you do that, and it was about possession, like you mentioned, like the devil and stuff, and then me being raised with this hardcore Catholic background with priests and nuns in my family, uh, it took so much fear out of watching you. So if you want to share with the audience about that one.
Yeah, it was a really interesting episode, that one, because it was something that we hadn't really tackled on Rescue Mediums. And what made it, and I'll tell you something that happened as well. is we never see the episodes until they've been put together and gone out. So I did not see that episode until it had gone out. So I didn't know that the young girl's father had actually taken a video of her. He'd filmed her
Yes.
being possessed. I didn't see that until, well, neither of us saw it until after the episode was released. And so I think that gave it an extra sort of punch to it almost, is that her family didn't say, oh, you're just being ridiculous. This is you're being a ridiculous person or anything like that. They believed her because they knew her personality. And this young woman was acting totally differently to the daughter they knew. So she wasn't exaggerating. She wasn't trying to gain attention or anything. And when you're working around somebody's energy, so you'll know I use my hand chakras all the time to
Yes.
read energy. And so I could feel that energy around her, and so could Alison. So again, it's like, how do we take the fear out of this? We need to get to the bottom of what's happening. We can't leave this poor girl like this, you know. So how do we do that? And the technique I used with her was a technique that a medium in England showed me many years ago. We went to an investigation. It was a very similar thing, and we worked together. And she showed me how to do that. And so I remembered I needed to use that technique where you're pulling the spirit away. What we're doing is we are getting the spirit to connect with us rather than with the mind of the whoever they've attached to. In that case, it was with the young girl. And separating them enough to be able to go, okay, you tell me now, you tell me what's happening here. Thankfully, it worked. We were able to separate. And then he told his story, which was quite like, oh my God, what this story. She picked him up as she'd walked past a graveyard.
Yes.
Mm.
Inside their
And
house.
he just, because she's shining the light out. She's extremely psychic. Her name is Kieran, and she is extremely spiritual young lady. The whole family are very, very spiritual, and I've kept in touch with them. So I'm still in touch with them to this day. And she's not had any issues like that since we had that episode there with the house. So thankfully,
Yeah.
everything's back to normal.
I
Well,
love
Jack,
that episode. Like it just like after I finished watching it, I'm like, okay, there's nothing to be scared of. Because I'm gonna be honest, like I've been training for years and years, and I don't know if it's the Catholic in me that seed that gets ingrained of, ooh, watch out, like the boogeyman's gonna get you. And then I watched, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, nothing to be afraid of. So thank you for taking the fear out of it. And Dana wanted to ask a question.
well, when you do a lot of intense work, Jackie, so is there anything that you do in preparation before you go into a house or a place? And equally at the end, once you've finished the rescue mediumship, is there some sort of preparation or allowing it to, finish what you're doing and then move on with your day as such? I mean, how does that
Yeah.
look for you?
Yeah.
Especially after an episode like that.
Yeah, because you're on a journey. You're on this
Yeah.
emotional journey. You're on the journey with the homeowners. You're on the journey with the um, spirits that you are helping as well, and you're on a journey together. So whether it's with Christina, myself, or Alison and myself, that journey is that teamwork there, which has to. So you're on a very high vibration the whole time. So it's like you're right then you come right down afterwards, of course, because you have to ground. So which is why it's important that we always ground before. I always ground before I go into any location I know I'm going to be working in. I ground every single day anyway. I ground my energy. I protect my energy. Whether I'm working with spirit or not, because I want to protect my own energy. I don't want to absorb anybody else's energy. So I ground and protect before I go into a haunted location. And then because I want to fine tune my energy whilst I'm there, I open all of my chakras, I connect with my spirit guides, and I say, okay, what can you tell me about where I'm going to go? So that's why I just refer to what I've got right here. I do this every single day, whether I'm doing a reading for someone or whether I'm going into a haunted location, and that's my list for the day. So these are my tick lists or premonitions, if you like. And this is what I've always done. And so, yeah, I end up drawing all over the place as well. So, so I do that every day because it gives me a little bit of an insight as to what I may find there. Or it may be, there may be clues to what I might find. So it could be psychic art, might do a little bit of psychic art, whether I do or Alison does a psychic art. They're clues as to what we can find there. And it's not always evident at the time when we go into. So back here in England, we have a spirit team. We have a spirit rescue team. It's Feathers Rescue Team. So that's with my spiritual partner, who is Steve Furlong. And then Anne Jones, who's also part of the spirit team. We have others as well. And sometimes we take students with us into haunted locations. We ground, protect, open all the chakras, and then go into the locations. That's my preparation, because I'm fine-tuning. So when we finish, particularly with rescue mediums, in fact, it probably only is with rescue mediums. When we finished and you're coming down like this and you need to reground, well, you know, you've got to have a glass of something, girls, haven't you? So usually it's a glass of wine. That's my coming down. It's like, oh, and that's a different kind of spirit, obviously. So, but never before. Spirit and spirit don't mix.
And one of the episodes, Jackie, I was watching, I think you were working with Alison, and I think you mentioned it was a shapeshifter as such. I just wanted you to explain what that is. How do you discern that as opposed to someone in spirit, but then you're sensing a man, then you're sensing a son, and then you realize because there was rapid movement that they were moving too fast, almost as if they were goading you or teasing you as such.
Yeah, oh, I've come across shapeshifters in a number of different ways. And it literally is that we're all energy. We're energy. Everything we look at is energy. And so spirit don't have a body, a physical body. So they're pure energy. And energy can change shape. So it's like electricity. You cannot see electricity, but you put your finger in a socket and you'll soon find out about it because, you know, you get the electric shock. And so this is a case of channeling the energy that is a little bit all over the place to be able to find out why the energy is moving in the way that it is. The episode you're talking about with the shapeshifter, the energy was anger and upset. And so we had to find out, did that anger belong to one person? Why is it changing shape? So when the energy calmed down, that's when we were able to communicate with the energy itself. And the energy belonged to the farmer whose son had died in a terrible accident on the farm.
That's right.
And,
yes.
and he was responsible for that, but he blamed his wife for allowing the boy to go.
Right.
So he got so much anger and frustration and sorrow, grief. His grief was overwhelming. And so every time he thought about what happened, the energy came out of control. And what we were almost doing was trying to, every time we tried to connect with him, he was aware of why he was trapped. So the anger would start up again, you know, and it would add to it. So I think at one point we were thrown against the wall, you know, and we've had shapeshifters who, an episode here actually in England with Steve Furlong and another medium. And the shapeshifter was a young man who had got so much energy. He punched this young man. He punched him. This man, who was a religious man, punched him in the nose. And he fell back and his nose was bleeding. Physically, this happened. And we had to then move the energy away from him. So the energy was talking to us rather than to the young man. He was angry with the young man because this minister didn't believe that the young man should be staying over in this house with his young girlfriend. He just thought it was not morally right to do that. So, but anyway, that's another story. And so the energy can become a shape, and it's understanding why the shape is there and who does it belong to. However, you can also have a number of shapes, and the number of shapes don't belong to one person. It's like a melting pot of energy. That happens a lot on like battlefields and places like that, or where there's been a lot of trauma. Yeah. And the energy becomes like it feeds, one feeds another. So you've got to go through the layers then. And that can be very difficult to do.
So Jackie, how do you know we're going into a situation, particularly when there's been history and layered history and lots of trauma and passings? How do you go into that situation, discern which is actually not a psychic impression of charged energy and emotion, or rather a soul that really hasn't transitioned? How do you discern the difference?
Well, by communicating and finding out, is there anything? So healing is, Alison's a wonderful healer. She's a Reiki master. So if we were working in that sort of area, then we would go, okay, this is what this feels like. And she would do the healing. This is the teamwork here, but also your team upstairs that are working from their side as well. So it's a real team effort to try and work through, okay, that layer just needs healing. And then we need to get to the layer underneath. Oh, well, there could be somebody trapped there. Well, are you trapped? Why? Oh, well, I had my leg blown off on a landmine. Oh, okay. So, well, let's get somebody in that, you're not feeling that pain anymore. Who are you missing the most in spirit? Who would you love to see? Oh, well, I'd love to see my mother again. So then we ask the mother to come in to help to take him. So it's a very much a team effort, especially when you're working through layers. Because if you don't get a direct response and the healing is working, then that's all that's needed. But it can take a long time because you're working through so many different layers.
Fascinating. Maria.
I love how, and for those that are listening, I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation, because I am, and I'm learning so much. And most importantly, what I'm taking away is communicate with spirit, because so many times you're taught, like, don't talk to them, don't talk. So I love that you're like, talk to them like they're real people. We just can't see them, but remember to treat them with respect and love and
Yes.
compassion. And then before we got on the call, you were mentioning like different personalities. So for working mediums that are like doing readings and like different types of mindsets for spirit, if you could elaborate or share with our listeners and viewers about that. Like
Yeah. Well, when you're doing when you're doing a reading for somebody, you have a response from that person that you are doing the reading for, So just for example, if, I have a lady here, she is a grandmother figure. She's talking about the sewing machine that she used all the time that you now have. So that's just an example. And so the client may say, oh, yeah, I've got my grandmother's sewing machine. I was so happy that she left that to me. And so you get that response straight away. So you get loving spirit energy who want to come in, whether you're doing a one-to-one reading or if you're doing platform work, which I don't do. I don't really like platform work. I just like one-to-one, only because I talk too much and it would, it would take forever on a platform. So
I can relate.
I like to be able to give that information. So when you're doing rescue work, investigative work, you haven't got that immediate connection that you can say, this is this is what I've got. You haven't got that. And so you have to try and fathom out what that spirit is telling you. And bearing in mind that if they are trapped, there's a reason for that. So it's either that they have done some bad things in their time when they lived on the earth plane and they don't want to own up to it, or they had something bad happen to them, or they died in traumatic circumstances, or they just like hanging out because they like the place that they are. They like the house that they built or whatever, or they just want to be around their loved ones still on the earth plane. And so you have different degrees of personalities. So you don't suddenly sprout wings and become an angel when you pass over. If you have been stubborn and maybe, you know, not done very nice things in your lifetime, you're not suddenly going to become all angelic and I'm a spirit guide wanting to help everybody. You know, you have issues still that you need to work through. So you have varying degrees of personalities who show their anger, like could be the shapeshifter, or their grief, which again could be the shapeshifter, or it could be frustration. So you get some a force of energy to you, and you have to. I call it spirit counseling because you have to find out why they're like that. What made you like that? You know, I remember one of the episodes of Rescue Mediums we were dealing with. I think it was in Ridgetown. We were in the basement of this. It had been a hotel and it was a bar and whatever. And we were in the basement and there was a very, very angry man. And he'd been quite nasty. He'd pinched Alison and scratched her when we were in an upstairs area. Then he tried to strangle me. And so, you know, it's very strange feeling something around your neck and you can't get your breath. And it's actually his energy. He's recreating something there. So you have to find out why they're doing that. So all the time in my mind, or if it's happening to Alison in her mind, you're having this ongoing conversation. Like, why are you doing this to me? What's going on? You know, can we talk about this? You know, like, can you just stand back a little bit because you're a bit too close? And we've got our spirit team up there. So even though they are overshadowing, we allow the overshadowing to happen so we can get the story out because we need to understand what's happening. So that is all part and parcel of teamwork. Is allowing that to happen so we can get the story. So not every situation you go to is you're going to be overshadowed. It's just like it can just take days and days of going back and going, okay, tell me your story, you know, what's going on now. And everybody is a different personality. And so you're not dealing with somebody who is all light and love and wanting to give lovely messages to their loved ones on the earth plane. These are people who have passed over, who have issues. So why do you have the issue? So that is the counselling side of things, spirit counselling, before they will eventually go over. And then they may be coming back and going, oh, yeah, thank you for that. You've really helped. Not often that happens, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes it does. But yeah, so that's why you have that. It's a different vibration between when you're doing a reading for someone or where you're doing an investigation, because the vibration of the spirit is different. So you work on a different energy level.
I'm curious. So when that spirit strangles you energetically, do you get scared or are you just kind of used to it and you're like, oh, it's just them, it's just energy. We'll get through this.
You've got to trust. That's the thing. I trust my spirit guide to know that they're not going to physically allow me to be hurt. So even though it's uncomfortable, it's necessary to get the story over. And that's the only reason we allow it to happen. Because there are occasions when we get something that's happening where we're not allowed. It's like our spirit guide was saying, no, don't even allow this to happen. Don't allow this to happen. That happened in an episode in Bath. Where we were dealing with very negative energy. And my spirit guide saying, don't let Alison get too close to thee. Tell her not to let them get too close. And I'm saying to her, don't allow them to come near. Don't allow them to come too near, because we were dealing with people who had been incarcerated in a jail in Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah.
And so don't allow them to get too close. And she was saying, no, I won't allow them to get too close. Gone. She allowed them to get too close.
Oh
And
no.
it physically, it was awful. It really was awful, because we nearly stopped the filming because of the severity of that. And a couple of times that's happened where we've nearly stopped the filming. The director has got, oh, do you know what? If this happens for a few seconds longer, we've got to stop this because something's not right. But our team upstairs work very closely, and I think that's the importance, is knowing who your spirit team are when you're doing that kind of work.
Yeah. I think too, because you mentioned Kingston, for people that don't know, isn't that like the highest security jail in Canada? So it's like, yeah,
Right, right,
so
yeah.
people, it's not like your neighborhood jail where you steal a couple bucks or a can of Coke. It's, yeah.
No.
So yeah, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I am curious. Oh wait, I saw Dana. Dana, do you have a question?
Didn't look like I was going to ask. Jackie, I had to ask because after you created that and you've allowed that evidence, that felt presence, that physical manifestation, in order to understand their story so you can best serve and help them, have you ever had a spirit where you've created and you've got the understanding as to why they're manifesting this paranormal activity on a family or people in the house? Have you ever had a spirit that's then not wanted to and even when family came, or have they been stubborn and just not ready? Does that
Oh
happen?
yeah.
It doesn't.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
they're going, okay, so I told you my story, but do you know what? I'm still not ready to go over yet. I don't want, and you can't force them. Of course, you can't force them. So we have a team in spirit who will keep on working with them. And so it's like, we're going to move you from this room to the next room,
Right.
and then we're going to close that doorway so you can't come back here. We're going to go there. And I think we had one of the episodes, I can't remember which one it was, where we created a crystal cave. And and that's working with crystal energy, which is a high vibrational energy. And it was almost like we had to move that entity, who was a very nasty individual when they were on the earth plane, and had been terrorizing people when he was alive, still doing it after he passed away. So we had to move him to a secure place. So we were able, through talking to him, to lift his energy enough to move him to room 2 from room 1, so to speak, and then created a crystal cave. And he had to stay there until he was able to see that it was his own doing as to why he was trapped in that place. So it's a bit like, you can arrest somebody and send them to prison, and they could serve their time in prison. But when they come out of prison, you know what? They do the same thing all over again, and they go back to prison. It's the same in the spirit world. You've got to be able to say, okay, I did this. That was a dreadful thing for me to do. How can I make amends? What can I do? And that's part of that healing process that they have to go through in order to not exonerate them, but for them to understand how wrong that was. And that might mean them being reborn. It could be that they then reborn, and that's a whole new thing of getting into the reborn, the
We're
karma
opening up a
thing.
can of worms here, Jackie.
Oh, I know. I'm not, as I say, I'm not even
We
really
could be
going to go
here
into
all
that.
night.
But there could be a number of things here where we usually have a spirit team who will go in, and they'll be monitored, and they'll have somebody go in and talk to them. One of the team that I work with in those kind of situations, I call him the cardinal, and he speaks in Latin. and I don't understand Latin at all. And so years ago, I used to have a Latin dictionary that I would carry everywhere with me, so that if he spoke in Latin or he wrote in Latin, and he would do that when I was working with Christine, he would speak in Latin, I would write it down, then I would go and look up to see what it was he was trying to tell us. And then as time went by, I realized, because my spirit guide said to me, you know, the thought's the same in any language. It doesn't matter what the language is, the thought is still the same. So you just have to get to the thought rather than the words that interpret the thought. And it took me a little while to get my head around that one. Then I realized, actually, yeah, the thought is the same. So if I was to say, think of a glass, even though I would call it a glass or a goblet or whatever, in other languages that would be called something else, but the visual image is still the same no matter what the word for that is. And that's what he meant. And so now when I work with the cardinal, even though he's speaking in Latin and he's thinking the thoughts that come out in Latin, but the thought is still the same. So now I don't need an interpreter. I don't need the book. The cardinal usually helps in really difficult situations like that, you know. So he's really good. And I always smell, when he's there, I always smell incense. He brings the incense and he does this with the incense. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I wanted to ask about spirit art because you're a spirit artist. And
Yes.
when did you start doing spirit art, Jackie? Like, when did you get interested in that?
I've always doodled. I like doodling. And I realized that doodling, you know, if you doodle something, there might be a meaning to it, you know. So I think that's where it started. But I started to experiment with pencils as doing premonitions, you know, doing the premonitions, you do a little drawing or whatever. And then the drawings would make sense as to uh, where you're going and what's going to unfold. Or like I just shown you with the doodle that I did. There we are, that doodle there.
Yeah.
It's still psychic art. But that was to represent a sunflower. And then I had a whole conversation with my client about the sunflower, which had a special meaning for her. And I'm doing that while I'm having the reading, doing the reading. So that's the one kind of spirit art that I do. Or, you know, Alison would do, or Christine would do, you know, you're going to find things when you get there. But what started to happen with me, I was curious about spirit guides and what they looked like. My spirit guide, I wanted to draw what my spirit guide looked like because I wanted a picture of him, you know, and you can't take a photograph, so I wanted a picture. So I connected with his energy and I said, allow me to draw you, will you? You know, it might not be what I'm really seeing here, but it's an interpretation, because that's what spirit art is. It's an interpretation. And so I drew what I felt was his energy. And then a message came with that as well. So I thought, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And that's the automatic writing. So then I started to concentrate on doing that for other people as well. They're interested in their spirit guides. So I do spirit guide portraits of people and or for them. And I work with a photograph. So somebody sends me a photograph of themselves and I have to see into their eyes, connect with their energy and ask their spirit guide to come forward. So there's always a drawing and a message that goes with them, you know, with that. So I've been doing that probably, oh gosh, I've lost count of the years now that I've been doing that. And I don't do it all the time, you know, because I don't have the time to do that
Yeah.
all the time. And I admire people who can do that. You know, there's a number of very, very good spirit artists. Gillian Berridge is she's an amazing spirit artist. She doesn't just do spirit guides, she'll do your loved ones. She'll draw your loved ones, you know, in spirit. And I admire someone who can do that. But yeah, I tend to stick with my spirit guides. So
I love that.
that's what I love to do. I love to do it because you know, I'm a bit arty anyway. I like sort of messing with art, but you can't always get down on paper what you see in your head. That's the
True.
thing. And I always say to people, this is only an interpretation of that. It's an interpretation of what I see or feel, you know. So
So,
yeah,
and
I've got all my arty things over there.
you really, I look so excited. I love art, and I'm always fascinated when people like yourself are able to draw other people's spirit guides or to draw people in spirit. So when you're doing readings like mediumship readings, do you draw their loved ones, or is that just for rescue mediums that you draw the spirit people?
It's usually for an investigation, you know, because if I draw something, that's part of the premonition. So that's done
Yes.
before we go anywhere. So when we get to the property, there may be a photograph on the wall that looks like the drawing that I've done, or Alison's done, or Christine's done. And so then that's good proof because we've not been there. So it's about having the proof. Or we encounter someone in spirit, and then a photo that, you know, the researcher is able to go away and find the photograph that of that person that we've, you know, I've either drawn or we've explained what he looks like, and then put the two together. And then to me, again, it's about having proof for what you've been
Yeah.
given beforehand. So I don't sit with a client and draw their loved ones, but there are spirit artists who do that, like Gillian, Ros
Yeah.
Coleman. She's another spirit artist who will do that. And you go and sit with her, she'll do that drawing for you while you're there. I don't do that simply because I haven't got the time to do that. You know, it's not my thing, and I talk too much. I talk far too much to be able to sit there doing a drawing, because I'd have to keep quiet while I'm doing that, you know.
So on rescue mediums, because your artwork it's absolutely incredible, and it's almost to a match when you find the newspaper articles, like when you're looking for that evidence. Have you gone to
Yeah.
school to learn to draw like that, or is that all natural spirit guided?
I like drawing. I've always liked to draw, but I've never had any training to do anything like that. And when I do my spirit guides, I connect with guides in spirit who will help with the drawing. So there's different styles of drawing. You
Yeah.
know, if I draw very quickly, and I can do that while I'm working on something like that, and it's drawn very quickly, that's a different spirit guide that I'm working with, who will help me to draw like that, as opposed to sitting and just, you know, them guiding my hand or me interpreting what I'm seeing here. So yeah, but you don't have to have any art training to be able to do spirit art. And it's not about a masterpiece. It can be a story that's told, you know, it can be to do with the essence of where you are. One of the things that I do with a workshop that I do is I get we do a meditation. Okay, so it's a guided meditation. I would talk the class through a meditation. And then part of the uh, way to work with spirit art is you then paint or draw your meditation, you know, because then that's interpretation of what you've just experienced. So, like that gorgeous picture behind you there of the beach scene, if you had that in your mind, that's your meditation, you're in a beach scene like that, then you get to draw it, and then you've got a visual of what you've experienced here. And every time you look at that, you'll feel that same sort of wonderful Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
gorgeous? You get that same sort of calmness that you felt when you actually saw that in your meditation.
Oh, wow. I want to go to the beach now.
Yeah, yeah, go. Yeah, I mean, you could be anywhere. You could be, I don't know, you could be walking through a forest with, the sun coming through the trees, and that's what you then draw or paint.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's your interpretation. That's the thing of something that you are experiencing here. And you can ask spirit to guide you. You can ask them to, it could just be color. Like, I'm seeing the color green here. I'm seeing the color purple here. I'm seeing, whatever. It's
Yeah.
there. It's your interpretation of what does that color green make you feel like? What does the purple make you feel like?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of psychic art, is allowing it to flow. And
Yeah.
it's your interpretation of that, or allowing spirit to inspire you to do something or to write something.
Yes. So I just want to say that I have enjoyed our time together because we're coming to a close. And
Oh,
you know, I feel like we could
That's what I
talk
think.
for hours and hours and hours. And if you have time in the future, I would love to have you back. Uh,
I'd love to go.
thank you. And before we close, is there any advice you would like to give, or for people that want to become a you, that are like so excited and intrigued with becoming a rescue medium or spirit art? First of all, train with you for sure. And anything else you would recommend for those aspiring mediums?
I would just say believe in yourself, and trust in your own abilities, and to trust that spirit will only want you to be the best of yourself that you can be. So yeah, it's one of Alison's words, that believe, but it's such a great word. Yeah, so believe, to do whatever it is you want to do. Do the things that you love to do, not the things that you have to do. And you'll go through life smiling.
Yeah, I think that's
Mm.
beautiful advice. So thank you. And I want to say thank you to Dana in Australia, which is
Oh, thank you for having me. I've loved it.
so
Oh
thank
yeah, thank
you.
you, Dana. Staying up very, very late, as I know it is there in
Well
Australia
worth
right
it.
now.
Yeah. It's 1 a.m.
Oh my
That's
gosh, 1 a.m. Wow.
wow. But
Well,
thank
thank
you so
you.
much. And for those that are listening, I am going to have all of Jackie Dennison's stuff. Her website is jackiedennison.com. I will have all the live links so you guys can reach out to her, book readings, get training, because training is super important. Don't jump into this work because you need to know what you're doing and stay safe and believe,
Yeah,
and talk to your spirit team. Yes. Okay. Thank you,
absolutely.
everybody. Goodbye.
Thank
Fabulous.
you.
Thank
Bye bye.